This grandma's brutal true story of trauma triumph will haunt you forever. It was a night like no other when the wind howled like a wounded beast, rattling windows and sending shivers down spines. The clock struck midnight, and in a small, creaking house on the corner of Elm Street, Grandma Ruth sat in her favorite chair, knitting needles in hand. But those needles weren't just for crafts. They held secrets darker than anyone could imagine. The townsfolk whispered about her, claiming she had once been a healer with powers that could both save and destroy. A flicker of candlelight danced across her lined face, casting shadows that twisted like the very heartache she hid within. Years ago, something terrible had happened that left a mark on her soul, as deep as the rivers that carved the land. It was said that during the winter of 1978, an unspeakable tragedy struck, one that shook the core of their sleepy town. The stories were shrouded in mystery: a lost daughter, a dark figure in the night, a scream that echoed for miles. Some swore they could still hear that scream on stormy nights, reverberating through generations. And what about Grandma? No one truly knew if she was a villain or a victim in this haunting tale. Her hands trembled as she knitted, but not from age, no. It was the weight of unshed tears, memories that clawed at her heart. Each stitch was a battle. Memories flooded back of her younger days, filled with laughter and light, now overshadowed by shadows lurking just beyond her front door. There was a chill in the air, a whisper of foreboding that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand straight. Suddenly, a loud crash outside jolted her, sending her heart racing. The sound echoed through the house like the cracking of ice beneath foot. Grandma's breath caught, each inhale sharp as glass. She peered through the dusty window, her heart hammering against her ribcage. What she saw made her blood run cold. A figure stood in the moonlight, cloaked in darkness. The townspeople might have forgotten, but the past never really dies. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With each passing moment, her pulse quickened. She couldn't shake the feeling that this figure held answers she had buried for too long. The weight of her past pressed down on her shoulders, dragging her deeper into darkness. But within that darkness, there was a flicker of determination. She'd made it through the worst and come out alive. Maybe, just maybe, this was her chance to confront what she had avoided for decades. As the figure stepped closer to the door, armed with secrets of its own, Grandma Ruth took a deep breath. Could she confront the horror that haunted her dreams? Or would she let the shadows win again? It was time to rewrite her story. But would it end in triumph or tragedy? The figure lingered in the moonlit glow, and Grandma Ruth felt her heart race as fear clashed with a surge of defiance. Could this shadow be linked to the tragedy she had locked away in her memory? Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, a relentless reminder of time slipping away. She swallowed hard, tasting the familiar bitterness of secrets long buried. As the figure stepped forward, its outline became clearer: a man, cloaked in a long coat that fluttered like dark smoke. His face remained obscured, but something about him felt unsettlingly familiar. Grandma trembled again, but this time it wasn't just fear. It was a stir of old emotions rising like storm clouds. Was it possible? Could he be the one she had lost so long ago? "Who are you?" she called out, her voice steadier than she felt. The man hesitated, and for a moment the world fell silent. The howling wind seemed to hold its breath, waiting for a response. Then he took a few steps closer, just at the edge of light. "You know who I am, Ruth," he said, his voice low and gravelly like stones rolling down a hill. "It's time to face the truth." Her stomach twisted. The truth? That's what she feared most. Memories from that awful winter flooded back: the laughter that turned to screams, the heart that shattered like glass. Why was he here now after all these years? "Stay away," she shouted, gripping the arms of her chair. She wanted to run, but her body felt rooted to the spot. "You shouldn't have come back." His silhouette shifted, and a hand emerged from the darkness, a gesture meant to calm. "I'm not your enemy, Ruth. I'm here to help you remember." The very name seemed to pull her into a chasm of confusion and sorrow. Would remembering release her from the chains of guilt? Or would it drag her deeper into the pit of despair? They both stood suspended in that moment, the weight of the past hanging thick between them. Suddenly, the wind howled again, this time sharper, like a knife through the night. Grandma's fingers found the knitting needles, gripping them tightly as if they could shield her from the truth. She glared at him, desperate to protect herself. You don't know what you're asking. Some things are better left forgotten. The figure shook his head slowly. But forgetting will only keep you trapped. It's time to confront what happened that night. Before it consumes you entirely. The air crackled with tension, and for the first time, Grandma felt a flicker of possibility. Could this be her chance for redemption? She could finally pierce through the shadows and reveal the ugly truth she'd kept at bay. Yet doubt gnawed at her. Had she the courage to face the storm she'd hidden for so long? As the man took another step closer, his face illuminated by the dim light, she saw not just the features of a man she had once known, but the reflection of her broken past. Shadows of remorse danced in his eyes, and something deep within her began to unravel. Are you ready to face the horror, Ruth? He asked, his voice cutting through the darkness. Tears filled her eyes as past pain collided with present uncertainty. It was time to confront the demons that had threatened to consume her life. But could she withstand the storm that awaited her? She took a breath, trembling with fear and resolve. But as she opened her mouth to speak, another crash rang out, this time much closer, slicing through the fragile tension like a jagged knife. Panic surged through her veins. What was happening outside? Stay here, she yelled, already moving towards the door, her instincts kicking in. But he grabbed her arm. No, you need to confront your fears first. Could she step into the abyss of her past while terror threatened to breach her home? What awaited her on the other side of the door? Would it reveal the truth she sought? Or would it plunge her deeper into chaos? The choice loomed like a dark cloud overhead, a storm ready to break. The door rattled violently, each knock resonating with ominous urgency. Grandma Ruth's heart thundered in her chest, the unexplained terror outside mingling with the ghost of the past standing before her. She felt that familiar pit in her stomach tighten, twisting her resolve. What was that? She gasped, glancing up at the figure. The shadows deepened around him, swallowing fragments of hope. Listen to me, Ruth, he urged, his eyes boring into hers. There's more at stake than just your memories. If you don't face what's out there, it will come for you just like it did before. His words hung heavy in the air, pulling at a thread woven into her very soul. A mix of anger and fear ignited within her. Is this how you plan to help? By dragging me back to that place of horror? Yes, he exclaimed, his intensity rising, nearly shouting over the noise of the crashing. But you need to face it with me. Ruth's mind raced. Memories surged uninvited. The low cries, the icy wind that chilled her bones in that terrible winter. Her hands trembled, the knitting needles slipping from her grip and clattering to the floor. She had pushed those memories away for so long. And yet, the truth he spoke of beckoned her closer. A flame amidst the darkness. Open the door, Ruth. His voice became a fierce whisper, wrapping around her like a vine, drawing her in. You're stronger than you think. They need you, and so do you. Then another crash came, louder and more insistent, shaking the walls of her sanctuary. The floorboards rattled beneath her feet, and the old wooden beams creaked, as though the house itself was urging her to act. Step away from the door, she shouted, desperate to shield herself. Fear clawed at her throat, yet a flicker of determination ignited deep inside. No, he said, moving closer. This is where you must stand your ground. Don't let the fear win. You have fought so hard to live in the light. Now it's time to erase the darkness. The man's words hung in the air like a lifeline in a storm-tossed sea. Could she truly reclaim the parts of herself she had long buried? The thought was both horrifying and liberating. Together? She whispered, barely able to believe her own voice. Yes, he replied, a slight nod of encouragement. But first you have to open that door. With every knock, an echo of her past called her. Grandma Ruth hesitated, a flurry of memories tangled with present fears. The shadows flickered and twisted just beyond the door, but the man's hands reached for hers, grounding her. Whatever is beyond that door cannot hurt you if you stand firm in who you are, he insisted, His belief seeped into her like a sunbeam breaking through clouds. In that moment, she felt the tiniest shift in her heart. Could it be that the truths hidden within her unlocked strength instead of fear? Taking a deep breath, she stepped towards the door, her resolve hardening like steel. With shaking hands, she grasped the knob and paused. The noise outside had morphed into a persistent thrum, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Are you with me?" she asked, glancing back at the shadowy figure, her ally forged from remnants of her past. "Always," he replied, his voice steady as the tide. Then, gripping the knob tightly, she turned it slowly. The hinges creaked ominously as she pulled the door open, and the icy air rushed in, wrapping around her like a shroud. What awaited her on the other side was beyond anything she could have imagined. Screams and shouts enveloped her like a tidal wave, drowning out her thoughts. With each breath, she felt the warmth of the man's presence at her side, steadying her, grounding her. This wasn't just about the past. It was about reclaiming everything she had lost and everything she could still have. But as she stepped into the fray, a new figure emerged from the shadows, its eyes glinting with malice. In an instant, Grandma Ruth realized the confrontation was only beginning. What lay ahead? Would she find her strength, or would the darkness drag her down once more? The chaos roared like a storm. Shadows twisted and coiled, clawing at the edges of Grandma Ruth's vision. Her heart raced, each beat echoing the dread tightening around her throat. The world outside was a frenzied collage of muffled cries, while the new figure stood its ground before her, its malevolent eyes fixed firmly on her. "Who are you?" she stammered, the tremor in her voice betraying her fear. The figure took a step forward, and Ruth felt a chill creep into her bones. This was not just a manifestation of fear. This was something far darker. "I am what you feared to confront," it hissed, its voice like ice scraping together. "I am your past, the truth buried beneath the memories you refused to face." The man beside her stiffened, his presence a reminder of strength. "Stay close, Ruth. Don't lose sight of who you are." Each word from the figure cut sharply through the tumult. Ruth remembered the nights filled with uncertainty, the icy grip of fear that had held her in its clutches. "You are not real," she shouted, but even as she did, doubt clouded her resolve. "Oh, but I am as real as the pain you hide," the figure replied, taking another deliberate step forward. "You've built a life around these shadows, but they're only a part of the tapestry. Unravel it and you may find the light." Ruth's thoughts spiraled. The memories clawed at the edges of her mind-darkened rooms, whispering secrets that had loomed over her for so long. "Why should I trust you?" she croaked, sinking deeper into a torrent of emotions. "Because confronting me is the only way to bring peace," it answered, a twisted grin spreading across its face. Loathing filled her as she saw the reflection of her own fears mocking her. "Ruth." The urgency in the man's voice broke through. "This is your moment. Don't let it slip away. Remember your strength." With a shuddering breath, she focused on that warmth beside her, the anchor that reminded her of resilience. She had spent her life battling the darkness, and he was right. Perhaps it was time to confront it all. "This ends now," Ruth yelled, feeling the strength of determination swell in her chest. "I will not be defined by fear." The figure snarled, the flickering shadows growing more chaotic around them. "You think you can escape me? I am your history. I will always haunt you." "Then let the haunting begin," Ruth declared, her voice rising above the din. She stepped forward, pulling herself up to her full height, and faced the abyss. "I have lived in your grasp for too long. No more." The ground shook beneath them as she found a flicker of light, buried deep within a hint of bravery that had been missing for so long. It shimmered, igniting the shadows around her into a swirling dance of dark and light. But just as the glimmer threatened to grow, the figure lunged, a scornful smile touching its lips. The room spun, the thunder of chaos mingling with the scream of denial echoing in her mind. Suddenly, everything went silent. The cries faded. The shadows loomed large, threatening to engulf the small light she had found. Ruth felt a stab of fear. Was this confrontation what she truly wanted? Had she awakened something worse? Darkness crawled closer, and a chilling realization gripped her heart. She had thought facing her fears would bring liberation. But what if it instead unleashed a haunting she couldn't control? With a racing heart, she braced herself for what came next, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Would the confrontation lead to redemption? Or had she merely opened a door to horrors she could never escape? What more awaited in the depths of her past? And what would she have to sacrifice to reclaim her future? The air thickened with a tension so palpable it felt like a living entity pressing against her skin. Ruth stood her ground, a flicker of light refusing to fade away even as the darkness stretched toward her. She could see the figure, the grotesque caricature of her fears, its twisted grin waiting for her to falter. "Face it, Ruth," the figure sneered, its voice curling around her like smoke. "You cannot outrun your own history. Embrace it and let me guide you into the abyss." Ruefully she shook her head, but the shadows whispered enticing truths, glitches of her past brushing against her consciousness. Memories flickered like a broken film reel, her childhood home. The sound of her mother's frightened whispers, the shadows that crept through her mind long ago. Your mother's secrets, the promises she broke, it taunted, eyes gleaming with malicious delight. You think they're gone, but they are embedded deep within you. It's time to unveil what's been hidden. Every instinct urged her to retreat, to bury the memories where they belonged. But standing beside her, the man, her anchor, gripped her hand tighter. You're stronger than this. Remember why you fight. What have you lost to hold them at bay? Ruth's heart thundered as she recalled the little girl she once was, the one who longed for safety amidst the storm. I will not succumb, she shouted, pushing against the suffocating grip of the shadows. They do not define who I am today. A whirlwind of sound erupted. The walls seemed to tremble with her declaration. Colors splashed across the room, grays and blacks clashed with radiant flashes of light. The figure, though strange and haunting, began to waver. Look at me, it hissed, frustrated, flinging its arms wide. I am the truth waiting in the dark. Ruth felt a sudden surge of courage. You're not the truth. You're my fear masquerading as something I should accept. I will not allow you to hold me hostage anymore. With every word she stepped closer to the figure. The shadows writhed, stuttering and splintering beneath her determination. She focused on the warmth of her companion's hand, the steady reminder of her resilience. And then, just as she reached within herself for the light, something unexpected happened. The figure dissolved, the shadows seemed to recoil into themselves, and a deafening silence enveloped the space. Ruth gasped as memories, once heavy with shame, flashed before her like wet paint drying into beautiful scenes. She's breaking through. The man shouted, hope lighting his voice as the darkness began to seep away. Yet amid the fading chaos, Ruth felt an uneasy weight. What would happen if she confronted everything? Would the mere act of acknowledgement cause the shadows to multiply, turning terror into a living nightmare? Ruth, the figure's voice roared, a final desperate plea swirling through the remnants of its presence. You think this is victory? You do not know the true depths of your pain. I can show you if only you let me. Sinking to one knee, Ruth could hardly breathe. The kaleidoscope of memories flashed vividly as confusion flooded her mind. Was she truly free, or simply stirring a storm that had lain dormant for too long? The question clung to her like a desperate plea, uncertainty creeping back in to release the last tendrils of hope. Would facing her past summon a strength she so desperately needed, or would it awaken an anguish more potent than the darkness she had just dispelled? Hands trembling, she looked up one more time. The shadows hung still, but the figure's haunting gaze promised a return if she dared to pursue the journey of her soul. What awaited her on the other side? One thing was clear, the fight was far from over. Would she embrace the memories, or would she turn back to forget it all once more? Ruth swallowed hard, the weight of the silence crushing down on her. The memories tumbled in her mind like stones, each a truth she had tried to bury. The figure, now a specter of her past, lingered like a dark cloud on the horizon. What are you hiding from, Ruth? It whispered, its voice dragging her deeper into the darkness. She wanted to scream, to push the haunting tones away, but her voice caught in her throat. The man beside her shifted, a shadow of concern crossing his face. Ruth, fight it. Remember who you are. His words pulsed like a heartbeat, but the void was pulling at her. With a deep breath, she forced herself up. You don't own me, she shouted, her voice raw with desperation. I won't let you define my narrative any longer. The room flickered around her. What she had once thought of as solid walls felt flimsy, trembling under the weight of unspoken truths about her family's past. The lights danced brighter, reflecting the fear and resolve raging within her. But then the memories shifted. Suddenly images swarmed back, jagged and raw. Her mother's fragile silhouette standing in the doorway, silently weeping. The echo of a broken glass, shards littering the kitchen floor. "You're just like her," the figure taunted, running from the truth because it's too painful. Ruth staggered as though she had been punched. Her mother was a ghost. She never wanted to confront a woman broken by the choices that had haunted them both. Anger bubbled up in her chest. I refused to chain myself to her regrets. Around her the air pulsed violently. The shadows grew bold, stretching toward her like hungry fingers. She turned toward the man at her side, seeking strength in his unwavering presence. "Help me, please," she gasped. "Stay with me," he urged, his grip tightening. "We'll face this together." Ruth felt the heat of his determination wash over her and nodded. In that moment, deeper truths ignited the storm within her. "You're right. I won't flee anymore. I choose to fight." The shadows flickered in confusion, then held as if in fear. Ruth's heart raced as she and the man advanced together, light pushing back darkness with each step. The figure screeched, its twisted features grimacing in fury. "You think confronting the past will save you? You are only awakening shadows that cannot be vanquished." But with every fiber of her being, Ruth declared, "I refuse to live in fear. I want the truth, no matter how painful." Even as the shadows writhed, something stirred inside her. A buried power she had almost forgotten. Memories twisted together, her mother's tears, her father's anger, but they transformed into fuel. The pain was real, but so was the strength to stand tall against what had been done. All at once she felt an electric surge. A brilliant light erupted from her core, slicing through the oncoming darkness. The figure melted away, its fury replaced by a vortex of emotions swirling around her. Yet within that storm Ruth found clarity. A moment slipped by as she absorbed the chaos, feeling the duality of her path. The shadows were still there, but they weren't her masters. "Do you see now?" the man whispered, all lacing his voice. "You're not just surviving. You're transforming." Ruth, emboldened by his faith, stepped through the wreckage of her past. It was messy, raw, but it was hers. As she emerged into a wider expanse, the darkness shrank away, revealing a long hallway ahead, glistening with shards of hope. Yet, something flickered at the end of the hallway, another figure that sent shivers racing down her spine. This one was familiar, too familiar. It bore the same twisted features. "Did you think this was the end, Ruth? We're just beginning." The air crackled with uncertainty. But one truth became painfully clear: Ruth had only scratched the surface of her journey. The specters of her past were ready to rise once more. Would she stand her ground against them? Or would she succumb to the weight of their reappearance? "Ruth!" the man's voice called out, urgency in his tone, pulling her back from the brink of despair. "We have to keep moving." And then she realized the real fight was ahead. How deep did this rabbit hole go? And was she prepared to discover all that lay beneath? Ruth's heart raced as she stared down the hall, fraught with uncertainty. The new figure, a grotesque mirror of her past, stood ominously at the end, its features twisting into a cruel smile that oozed malice. Shadows curled around it like smoke, eager to reclaim her. "Don't look back," the man urged, pulling her gently but insistently. His voice cut through the fog, grounding her amidst turmoil. Each step forward felt like an act of defiance against the siren call of despair weaving through the air. But the familiar figure loomed larger with every blink. "You think you're ready to unearth the truth?" it called out, its voice thick with mockery. "You think you can just run away from your past? It's waiting for you. Ruth always has been." "I'm not afraid of you," Ruth shouted, her voice echoing against the long, stark walls. But doubt wrapped around her, attempting to strangle the courage she fought to hold. Deep down, a part of her quivered at the thought of what lay ahead. What other demons awaited her analysis? Ruth felt the man beside her tighten his grip. His eyes locked onto hers, a steady flame against the encroaching shadows. "You've faced the darkness before. You can do it again." With a surge of determination, she stepped further into the hallway, determination anchoring her fragile heart. "I'm ready," she said firmly, the fear lining her voice blurring into a whisper of hope. "Ready?" The figure's laughter rang hauntingly through the corridor, filling the air with dread. "Then let us see how much you're willing to lose." Suddenly, the walls began to shudder. Pictures hung askew. Memories suspended in frames of glass shattered even as they flickered with life. Voices cascaded from nowhere: her childhood laughter, her parents' arguments, secrets stitched into the fabric of her upbringing. It all swirled like a hurricane in her mind, pouring down fears she buried in deep. "Ruth, focus." The man's voice cut through the chaos, firm yet gentle. "You control this. Don't let them pull you under." She squeezed his hand, a lifeline amid the tempest. "I won't let them drown me. I won't be their puppet anymore." But the figure at the end of the hall grinned wider, embodying darkness itself. "You think you control it? Look at you. You're a mess, a reflection of everyone you've been trying to escape." Stung, Ruth felt flashes of doubt creep back in. Would confronting this layered chaos just expose her more? Just as she teetered, she noticed flickers of kindness woven in the shadows. Flashes of laughter with friends, the hugs of a grandmother who always stood by her, the unyielding support of the man beside her. "Remember the love," she murmured under her breath. "That's what matters." In that instant, a pulse of warmth ignited within her core, mingling with her fear, giving her strength to push forward. She took a deep breath, anchoring herself to her truth, pushing against the rising tide of memories. "I'm not my past. I am what I choose to be." With ferocity she surged ahead, charging toward the figure. Each step felt heavier, yet invigorating, a battle cry echoing off the walls of her own making. The grotesque visage morphed, twisting into 1,000 expressions of agony and rage. "Then let us see how strong that resolve really is." It lunged forward, and Ruth's heart raced with a chaotic mixture of fear and defiance as the figure advanced. She locked eyes on its sinister gaze, the energy in the air thickening. She could feel the fabric of her reality stretching taut, ready to snap. And then, just before they collided, she saw something shimmer, light flooding the darkness as new truths spilled forth. What was this? The air quivered with the sound of 1,000 voices, each a piece of her fragmented soul. "Ruth!" The man called out, his urgency piercing through the rising tide of chaos. "Fight back." In that heartbeat, the true battle revealed itself. Not just against the fearsome specter before her, but the shadows gnawing at her spirit. This might have been just the beginning of a terrifying new chapter. But was she finally ready to uncover the truth behind the veil? Ruth's heart thudded in her chest, each beat merging with the crashing waves of sound whirling around her. Time felt suspended in that harrowing moment. The grotesque figure's malevolence clashed against the warmth beginning to illuminate her soul. She saw flickers of light, memories of joy mingling with shadows of sorrow, her grandmother's smiling face brightening the tears of her childhood. The air crackled as the figure lunged, a beast fed by the very darkness she'd tried so hard to bury. Fear gripped Ruth tighter, like icy fingers wrapping around her throat. But when she opened her mouth to shout, a new word emerged, unexpected and fierce, a powerful no that cut through the chaos like a sword. "I won't let you take control." The grin faltered for just a fraction of a second, and Ruth seized it. Every memory she once feared was now a tool, an arrow aimed directly at the heart of her past. Each moment became a weapon against the monster. She called upon the laughter of old friends, the touch of her grandmother's hand, the countless times she refused to let the shadows win. "Stop hiding behind my pain," Ruth declared, the determination in her voice surprising even herself. "You're nothing without it." As if sensing her new resolve, the figure writhed in response, morphing into mist and then solidifying again. 1,000 faces swirling together, each one more twisted than the last. "You think you can change the past, sweet Ruth?" It hissed, infusing the air with the stench of despair. "You are the past." Ruth felt the ground beneath her shift, tremors rolling beneath her feet. Doubt gnawed again at her mind, but she gritted her teeth and held tighter to the man by her side, drawing strength from their connection. "You empower your shadows. You don't define me." With each word, inky tendrils snaking from the figure began to recoil as if scorched by the fire she was igniting within. Light poured from her, bursting forth in fierce waves, illuminating her surroundings. She felt her voice kindle hope, a fierce hymn resonating through the hall as she stepped forward. "I am freedom. I am love. I am Ruth." The figure shrieked, its cries twisting into an anguished howl that echoed off the walls like thunder. Inside Ruth, a rush of adrenaline surged through her, threatening to tear the seams of her resolve apart. Yet she held firm. Could she keep this newfound power alive? Could she finally cast the darkness into the depths it had clawed its way from? Suddenly, the light concentrated at her fingertips, illuminating a brilliant path. Using that clarity, Ruth pressed forward, ready to face the monster once and for all. She knew this was the moment, and nothing would force her to retreat again. But then, as she reached out to confront the fear, a flash of blinding light erupted from the shadows. In a blink, the hallway dissolved into swirling chaos, twisting into a surreal landscape where memories danced and wrestled for control. Dread pooled inside Ruth. "Ruth!" the man cried, scrambling to pull her back. "Don't lose yourself now." But like a crashing wave, she was swept into the storm of her own cognizance, a storm that could either drown her or set her free. Would she sink under the weight of her past? Or would she rise above it, reborn? In that moment, as reality shifted, Ruth realized that the answer lay within her. She wasn't just facing a monster, she was standing at the precipice of her own redemption. But the question loomed large. Could she navigate this labyrinth of horrors long enough to find the way back? The echoes of laughter and cries of despair intertwined, surrounding her like a suffocating shroud. And just as she began to find her footing, the ground shook violently beneath her. Was the real battle yet to come? The swirling chaos intensified, each color and sound blending into a cacophony that clawed at Ruth's mind. It felt like drowning as shadows flitted around her, whispering sweet-tasting lies and bitter truths. Memories flickered in the corners of her vision, her childhood, her grandmother. Laughter echoed against her determination. "Ruth!" the man shouted again, his voice a lifeline cutting through the tempest. "You can fight this." Ruth grabbed onto that voice, anchoring herself. She focused, pulling the best of her memories to the forefront. A family picnic on a sunlit day, balloons bobbing in the breeze, her grandmother's laugh ringing clear as a bell. Each vision became a buoy, keeping her afloat in the dark waters swirling beneath her. But as the shadows closed in, the grotesque figure shifted again, its many faces contorting with rage and mockery. "You cannot escape this, Ruth. You are a prisoner of your own making." It snarled, and the ground beneath her feet trembled violently. Ruth's heart raced. She felt the darkness pressing in on her, its icy fingers gripping her throat. Panic surged, but she shook her head, shouting back even louder. "No, you don't get to rewrite my story." The light within her flared brighter, pushing back against the shadows. But in that moment, doubt crept in through the cracks of her confidence. What if the figure was right? What if she really was just a reflection of her past? Memories began to dance dangerously close to the edge of her consciousness, fragmented images blurring together the pain of loss, the struggles she faced alone. The pain weighed heavily. It sunk deeper than the turbulent waters. "Remember who you are," the man pleaded, his voice laced with urgency. "You're stronger than this." Ruth's resolve flickered. She clung to it desperately, like a drowning person reaching for air. The darkness inched closer, nearly suffocating her. With every ounce of strength, she summoned the warmth of her grandmother's love, the sweet taste of victory she'd savored as a child, the moment she triumphed despite the odds. "I choose to live," she roared, the power of her declaration shaking the walls of the nightmarish landscape. As if responding to her call, blinding light surged from her, illuminating the shadows, causing them to sizzle and retreat. The figure writhed, its form twisting and distorting in pain. "You cannot fight the truth," it screamed, and for a moment, Ruth felt its icy grip falter. But then in a sudden flash, the darkness lunged forward, absorbing her light and spinning it into a tight vortex of despair that threatened to consume her whole. She had stepped right into the very depths of her fear, every regret, every broken dream. For a split second, she felt her foundation crumbling, darkness coiling around her like a snake ready to strike. The ground shook violently, and she braced for impact. Would she really be pulled down, trapped in the void of anguish? Suddenly, just beyond the reach of the swirling shadows, a flicker caught her eye. A glimmer of hope and exit? Ruth strained her gaze. It shimmered in the chaotic whirlwind, teasing her to reach for it. "You can do this. It's there," the man shouted, his voice cutting through the din like a beacon. The fight was far from over. Ruth's heart raced, blood pounding in her ears as she prepared to leap into the unknown, the specter of her past clawing at her heels. But would she have the courage to break free? Or was she destined to remain trapped in this terrifying theater of memories? As she made her choice, the shadows coiled tighter, and the light began to flicker. Ruth's heart thundered like a war drum, each beat igniting a fierce resolve to break free of the darkness. The glimmer of hope before her pulsed like a star, beckoning her to believe in the possibility of freedom. With a final surge of determination, she leaped toward that shimmering light, willing herself to leave behind the shadows that had haunted her for too long. As she soared, the raging shadows lashed out, grasping at her, trying to pull her back into their suffocating embrace. But she wouldn't let them. "I choose to confront my past, not be a prisoner of it," she screamed, rallying her spirit against the tidal wave of despair. In that electric moment, something shifted in the air. The darkness recoiled, momentarily stunned by the power of her declaration. Fueled by the energy of her memories, both joyous and painful, Ruth pushed through the waves of turmoil. She reached for the flickering light that now felt like a warm embrace rather than a distant dream. Just as she thought the shadows would claim victory, the light exploded in a brilliant flash. The sudden calm settled over her, and Ruth found herself standing on solid ground. The shadows around her faded into wisps, evaporating like mist in the morning sun. Gravity pulled at her, yet she felt weightless, unburdened. Glancing around, she saw the man by her side. "You did it!" he exclaimed, all lighting up his eyes. "You broke free." Ruth looked down at her hands, now glowing with a gentle warmth. The fears that had once threatened to consume her had transformed into radiant energy, illuminating the room. "It's done, right?" she asked, her voice shaky but filled with unwavering hope. But before he could reply, that familiar figure emerged again, the grotesque reflection of her fears, now weakened and less defined. "You think you've escaped?" it sneered, the bitterness in its tone echoing in the sudden stillness. "I am your past, and I will always be a part of you." "No," Ruth replied firmly, this time steady in her resolve. "You're not a haunting. I choose to remember you as a part of my journey, not my identity. You don't control me anymore." Her words felt like a shield, and with each declaration, she felt the light within her grow stronger. The figure laughed at first, but as Ruth stood resolute, ready to embrace her truth, the laugh turned hollow. "You cannot just forget what was done." "I won't forget," she shouted back. "But I will reclaim my story. I refuse to let fear shackle my future." With that, she stepped toward the figure. It writhed, as if the very essence of Ruth's courage was a blade cutting through the veil of despair. For the first time, she didn't feel like a victim. She felt like a warrior, ready to confront every part of her life, the love, the joy, the pain. The energy around her flared in response, surging forward with a vibrant glow that began to envelop the figure. Ruth gasped, not out of fear, but marveling at her new clarity. The shadows began to disintegrate, scattering like leaves in the wind. "I've found my peace," she declared, her voice ringing with authority. "And I will write my own destiny from this moment forward." The figure screeched, its form fading, caught in the very light Ruth had summoned. The shadows turned to mist and slipped away, enveloped by her powerful resolve. Ruth felt a weight lift off her shoulders, an unbearable burden she had carried for too long. It was time to embrace who she was, not just in fragmented memories but as a whole. She turned back to the man. "We did it," she whispered, tears streaming down her face, a mix of relief and triumph. He smiled warmly, taking her hands in his. "You found your truth, Ruth. You faced the shadows and emerged into the light." Together, they turned to the doorway that opened behind them. Beyond lay a world bathed in sunlight, full of possibilities. She took a deep breath and stepped forward, finally free. As they walked into the dawn, Ruth felt light. She looked at the man by her side. "What happens now?" "Now you live your life," he said, a knowing sparkle in his eye. "You embrace every moment, the good, the bad. You're ready for whatever comes next." With each step, she felt the transformation within herself, a new beginning forged from the ashes of her past. This was the moment she had fought for. Ruth smiled, hopeful for the future, releasing every last shadow behind her. She was ready to write her story anew, fueled by the light of her courage. "Now, before you move on, I have to ask you something super important. You need to subscribe immediately to this channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that'll blow your mind. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm, and make sure everyone gets to see this ending. And please, Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this wild conclusion. I want to hear what you think. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. True fans understand the importance of supporting our community through these actions. Your voice matters. Let us build this together.